Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Chinese voters. Thank you for joining today's Meet the Candidate series. Today, we are glad to have one of very strong competitor or runners in this race to join us tonight. His name is Garrett Soldano, and I remember that there was a little descriptions on the screen that gave you some of the backgrounds about Garrett. I think Garrett, the first time I met him was June or July timeframe last year, and that was the time that he actually started running for the governor. And I was deeply impressed with his passion. He's a very sharp talker, quick thinker, small business owner. On top of that, he's a football player. So that's very, very impressive. And I'm sure that all of you is going to feel his passion and his goal-oriented mindset, the love for Michigan. And it's going to be a fantastic night with Mr. Soldano tonight with us. Garrett?
Well, thank you so much for having me tonight. And so, before we go even into a little bit of policy, I really feel like we need to kind of tell the story on how I got involved in this horrible, evil game called politics. Because if you would have went back to me over 2 years ago and said, "Hey, Garrett, you're going to be running for governor," I probably would have laughed you right out of the room. Never wanted anything to do with politics. Never wanted to be involved. I was just the type of a American that would go vote straight ticket, go back to my lifestyle that I've earned and created, and then forget about the election until the next election cycle. And so if you go all the way back to early January in 2020, when COVID started spreading throughout China and stuff, there wasn't a lot of information out there at the time. And I just remember one video that was circulated on all of our corporate media for like 2 months. And it was that one video where that person was standing on the sidewalk and then literally fell dead into the streets. And then they started having like scary music, and they start showing people that were dead in grocery aisles and dead on the sidewalks. And then you saw that person come up in what I like to call that astronaut suit, that Tyvek suit, that picked up that person, threw him in the ambulance and carted him away. And that was played 24 hours, 7 days a week, nonstop for 2 months. And it scared the heck out of society. So much that they were saying that COVID was going to kill 10% of Americans, which, folks, that's 30 million Americans. And that number obviously came up way short. But in the beginning, we didn't know. I'm a doctor, and I was like, well, I don't know what this is going to be. Is this going to be like smallpox? Is this going to be like Ebola? So common sense to me was what they said from the beginning, that we didn't want to overwhelm the hospital system, which makes sense to me as a doctor. Like, hey, we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that the people that need care get it. But as this started to spread throughout the United States, then we start to hear stories that the hospitals were empty. The hospitals were laying people off. And there's chances that some of these Michigan hospitals were actually going to close their doors because they didn't have any patients. And at that time, if you remember, Governor Whitmer started denying what was called FOIA requests, which is the Freedom of Information Act, to allow us to find out what's going on behind closed doors. She denied all of those. And so all of a sudden, we weren't getting any of the information. We weren't getting transparency. And at that time, something inside me was off. Like I said, something's going on here. They're not giving us the truth. And then, if you remember, she was telling us what we could and couldn't buy. You remember? You can't buy paint and mulch or you'll die of COVID. And you can go on a kayak, but if you go on a motorboat, you'll die of COVID. And then, unfortunately, if you ever touch that gas station pump handle, you're going to die of COVID. And so that started to just rub me the wrong way. But she extended that state of the emergency on April 9th. Like all of you, I was waiting for somebody in a position of authority. I was waiting for somebody in a position of power, one of our elected officials that we voted in to represent us, to stand up for us. And guess what? All I heard was crickets. All I heard was silence. Nobody was standing up for us. And at that time, I just had enough. So I decided to get on Facebook and just start a group called Michiganders Against Excessive Quarantine. And I went on there. I just did a little 5-minute video, a little rant, just basically saying how unhappy I was about what was going on. Is your constitutional freedoms, your sacred values, your citizens' rights should never be infringed upon, regardless of a pandemic. I mean, we live in America. We have freedoms. The government has no right to come in and tell us what we can and can't buy, whether or not we should open our business or close it. I'm all about limited government. And when I made that video, I went home that night and my wife looked at me and she's like, Garrett, what did you do? I was like, well, I started a Facebook group. And she's like, why? I said, because I had to get something off my chest. And that night, 500 people joined. And literally I looked at my wife and I said, holy cow, there's 500 people that feel just like I do, because a lot of us thought we were alone. And that's one thing over the past several years is the silent majority is no longer silent. We are awakened, we are alive, we are engaged, we're passionate. Well, that next morning, 5,000 people joined. And that night, 100,000, the second night, 200,000, the third night, 300,000 people joined that group. And I looked at my wife and I said, what the heck did I do? Because all of a sudden we had a movement, and this movement was passionate. It was frustrated. It was angry. And so as the leader of this movement, we had to start directing this movement into an energy, as you can say, to get things done. And so if you guys were a part of that group, if you remember back in April 2020, we started to hammer our own legislature, telling them not to extend the state of emergency. And finally, they listened to we the people. Isn't that funny? We gave the legislature a backbone. I guess that's why I'm a chiropractor, right? So they finally stood up and did not extend her state of emergency. And that's when Governor Whitmer went off that 1945 law and started ruling unilaterally over all of us. And at this time, Facebook took our group down, which grew to almost 400,000 people. And I co-founded what was called Stand Up Michigan. And we started to hold protests and rallies against these lockdowns to try to get business owners back to work and try to get everybody back to work. You guys just knew from the beginning what this narrative was going to be. I knew the lockdowns were going to do more harm than good. You do not quarantine healthy people. I knew the mandates were not going to do anything to stop and slow the spread of this virus. And so I just believed in my heart and soul that our cause was just. And when I really saw the power of this movement is when we went after that very law that Governor Whitmer was using, that 1945 law. I spearheaded the citizens petition where we helped Unlock Michigan collect over 539,000 signatures in 80 days, one of the fastest citizens petitions to ever be done. And that took away her very powers. But to be honest with you, when the state Supreme Court in October of 2020 ruled in favor of the legislature, I thought we were done. I thought we won. But I never knew in a million years that a governor could have weaponized the health department. Didn't even know that was possible. And so then I was sitting in the background wondering what I was going to do. And I really believe this: if she would have just opened up in November of 2020, like everybody else was doing, if you guys remember, Indiana, Ohio, Wisconsin, they were all fully open and we were still in lockdown, right? So I guess COVID only hated Michigan. It wouldn't jump the border. So these things as a doctor just didn't make sense to me. But when she lost this race was when she hammered down on our kids. When she told us to cancel Thanksgiving and the holidays, remember that, even though she went to the inauguration with her two daughters, she locked down our restaurants at 25% capacity. And we all know this, you try to live off 25% capacity. And that's what she did to these poor restaurant owners. And then she upped it up to 50% after a couple months, then up to 75%. Then she got caught eating with 12 of her friends in Lansing. And coincidentally, she opened up on that Monday. So we all know what's up. And we all know that she's just pushing a political narrative. But I tell you what, when she canceled our children's experiences and their opportunities and dreams, that's when she lost this state. And that's why, if you've been watching the races in other states, that's why Virginia, a blue state, turned red with Governor Youngkin. And the number one reason why was because you don't mess with our children. We do not co-parent with the government. And so when she did all this, when she locked down our restaurants to 25% capacity and she hammered down on our kids, that's when I knew I had to get involved. So I stepped down from Stand Up Michigan and I started contemplating a possible run for some type of office. And I didn't know what that was going to be. I didn't know if that was going to be school board, city council, city commission, state legislature. And I looked at my wife and she said, you got to run for governor. And I looked at her and I said, are you nuts? Can you only imagine the attacks that our family are going to go through? Because folks, when I stood up, I was the first person in the world literally to stand up, and it was very unpopular to do so. And they tried to cancel us. My business lost 50% of its revenue. They attacked it. They physically attacked it, destroyed my sign. They went after my license as a doctor. I had to take my children to undisclosed locations twice because there are some guys on a video that were going to come down and shotgun me dead in the streets and make my family pay. So we've been through all that hate and all those attacks. And my wife, we sat down and we had to understand and come together as a team and say, hey, look, it's going to increase 1,000-fold. But we all know why we're fighting. And we know our cause is just. And so that's why on almost a year ago, we threw our hat in the ring. And as a grassroots candidate, there's kind of like a stereotype that we can't fundraise. And we proved that stereotype wrong. We've been able to raise well over $1.6 million in 11 months. 96% of that comes from within the state of Michigan. 96% of that $1.6 million is under the amount of $200. And what does that tell you? That's grassroots. Those are votes. Those are the people. And that's what we have behind us right now is a movement. And this movement continues to grow. It's energized. And we're in a solid second place right now. And we're gaining traction. And we're in this thing to win it. That's for sure. So the next question that I always get is like, what are we going to do? How are we going to fix Michigan? Well, that's one thing that we've noticed over the past 2 years is we don't want government in our everyday lives. You know, big government is bad. We want limited government. And so we must make Michigan free again. So what we're going to do, and as the leader of this movement, and as the leader of the state, is we're going to make not only Michigan free again, but we're going to build a skyscraper of what we all know and believe that Michigan can be. And we know that Michigan can be a powerhouse with the right leadership behind it. But we have to have a solid foundation. And before you build a building, especially a skyscraper, you have to have a solid foundation. If not, the first storm, the first wind, it will be weak and it will blow over. And that foundation, ladies and gentlemen, it's called the Constitution of these United States. That's what it is. And so we must make sure that no governor can ever do this again, that no governor can ever weaponize the health department, because who in their right mind would ever want to move back to the state of Michigan with the threat of a lockdown with the next cold and flu season? And so we have to put the power back into the people. We have to put the power back into the business owners. So we have to make sure that this will never happen again. I think I'm the only candidate running right now that's actually going in to limit his own power, because that's what needs to happen. Once we secure our foundation, floor one of that skyscraper is called truth and transparency. Now, 2018, Governor Whitmer ran on that she was going to be the most transparent governor in the history of Michigan. And she had this little thing called Sunshine Plan. And out of all those points, she got 0 done in the last several years. And so what my team and I came up with was Sunshine Plan 2.0. And what that's going to entail is, number one, we're going to allow FOIA requests to get through the executive and legislative branches because the people deserve to know the truth. Number two, hey, who's lobbying you? Where are you getting your funds at? You probably all heard about the 501c4 slush funds, the dark money that these legislatures and these governors get that we don't know where that money comes from. See, we need to know who's buying who. Where is that money coming from? Who are you vested or who are you in bed with? And one of the things that we must know moving forward is, hey, we want people who are real now. That's what you're going to feel with me tonight, is I'm not a politician. I never will be. What you see and what you get with me is a statesman. I'm here to represent you. And so we want to make sure that from here on out, people are running, not for self-interest, not to make money, but they're here to serve the people. That's what elected officials are supposed to be. They're supposed to be public servants. And so one of the things I'm most proud of Sunshine Plan 2.0 is to make sure that any legislature, any future governor can never make any money up to 5 years off any of these bills that they pass. That's going to get all the self-interest out of Lansing, because we are the most corrupt politically in the union. We are the 50th in the nation in transparency. And I'm here to bring that back, because one of my jobs with this thing right now is to reestablish faith in our government, because there's a lot of us out there. And I'm looking in the mirror when I say this, we've lost faith in our government. We've lost faith with our elected officials. And that's a scary place to be. And so my job is to unify people again. I am the candidate for unity. We need to start having difficult conversations from a variety of different people, from a variety of different backgrounds and experiences, to not only move this state forward, but to move our country forward. Just because you don't agree with 100% of what I believe in or what I want to do, that doesn't mean we should attack each other. We should hate each other. We should try to cancel each other. We're done with that. And that's one thing that's happening right now is if you want to take down a country, you don't have to fire a bullet. You don't need troops on the ground. You don't need tanks or aircraft carriers. You know how you take down a country? You do it from within. You do it with division. You do it with infighting. And that's one thing that we have to stand up against now is we have to get away from this fringe left and this fringe right mentality with them just firing arrows at each other. It's time to unify people again. And that's what we have to bring to the table. So with this business revolution that we want to start here, we need to attract businesses back to Michigan. There was a mass exodus of people leaving Michigan even before COVID. And so with those businesses, small and big, hey, families leave after that. And that's tax revenue for the state because I'm going to run this place like a successful business. So we have to attract those businesses back. And one of the ways that we do this is making Michigan free again, to get truth and transparency. And then we have to start getting government out. One of the things for sure is as a business owner, it seems like we have a license for everything. There's a license for the township, the county, the state, the federal. And what those licenses are, that's control. That's why they were able to hold that against you when you tried to stand up. If you were against these lockdowns, is they would threaten you with taking your license, and that's your livelihood. And so we all can understand that we want to cut regulations because regulations is controlled by the government. And we can all agree that there are some regulations that are good. We don't want rats in the kitchen and stuff like that. But what happens right now, or what's happening in the United States in our state, is there's federal government and there's state government and there's local government overreach. And we have to start limiting those things. Okay. And the last thing that we're going to do with business wise, holy cow, Michigan is very, very expensive to do business in. It truly is. And one of the most expensive things that we have right now is our energy is too expensive. That's why we just lost 11,000 jobs to Kentucky and Tennessee. And the number one reason is energy is too gosh darn expensive. Folks, if they plan on plugging in our automobile fleet by 2030 and 2050, that's what they're saying. How are we going to power that? Solar and wind is not going to do it. They can complement the energy grid, but we have to start bringing some foresight to the equation. We have to have some entrepreneur spirit with this thing. And the only energy viable solutions that we have right now is nuclear and gas. That's it. And if we can start investing into our energy infrastructure, that's going to allow energy in the state of Michigan to be cheaper. That's going to attract more businesses, and that's going to attract more families. Families are going to spend money locally at their restaurants, at their dry cleaners, at their gas stations. That's how the economy can be built. But if we don't start bringing some common sense solutions to the state of Michigan, we're all in trouble. We truly are. And so another important topic right now is election integrity. You know, what are we going to do about election integrity? Well, most of us here wanted a full forensic audit, and I'm all about a full forensic audit anyways. I'm going to audit all kinds of systems when we get into the state of Michigan, because our job is to make sure these systems are doing the right thing and are working. All right. So if the integrity of the elections need to be looked at, we need to look at that. And that to me is a bipartisan issue. And if there's any shenanigans going on, we need to fix it. Another system we have to take a look at is unemployment agency. I'm all about helping people get back on their feet. But what's happening right now is people are taking advantage of it. And I've had employees collect unemployment for 2 years, even before COVID. And so obviously there's something going on with unemployment that needs to be audited. And so that's what we're going to bring to the table here, is we're going to start bringing some common sense solutions to this equation. And when we do that, we're going to figure this thing out, because right now, Michigan's in a hole. It truly is. And I know the governor, she's acting like a moderate Republican right now, spending all this money, the COVID relief money from the federal government. But my question then is this: what happens when that money runs out? We're going to be in trouble. And so if we don't start attracting businesses again and jobs and start supporting the businesses that are already here, we're not going to have any tax revenue here in the future. And guess what the Democrats are going to do? They're going to tax us more. That's how they're going to pay for it. And so if we don't increase our tax revenue through businesses, we're going to be all in trouble. Okay. So that's kind of a little bit about my background. I kind of went over, but I think it's very important that you guys understand where I come from, what I've been fighting for over the last 2 years, because there's a lot of candidates in this race. There truly is. And God bless every single person who wants to throw their hat in this horrible, evil game called politics. But what's going to hold weight with me from here on out is, where the heck have you been for 2 years? Where were you in 2020? Because if one of these people in a position of authority, one of these self-funders with all their millions of dollars, if they would have stood up from the beginning, I wouldn't have had to. They've been absent. And now that Governor Whitmer's vulnerable, we have all these people that want to run. And so I have some very important questions that I want answered as a citizen in Michigan is where have they been? And so it's easy to come into the late in the game. But folks, I've been battling her and all of her unconstitutional orders for 2 years now. And I put it all on the line. And so we're going to win this thing. And we're not only going to make Michigan great again, we're going to make it the powerhouse that we all know and believe. And we're going to take back lost ground, because that's why you feel me tonight. And that's why you can see I'm very passionate about this, because it's personal. I've been around this state many, many times, over 30,000 miles over the past year, talking to folks. And I've heard the stories of what these lockdowns have done to people, what they've done to their businesses, their families, their livelihood, their generational businesses, what this mental health crisis has done to our children in our schools. We are way behind all these other states who have done it right, like Florida, Texas, South Dakota. Their students didn't get uninterrupted learning, ours did. And so we have all these things that we need to have attention to now. And unfortunately, we the people are going to inherit a hot mess. But if we don't start getting the right leadership involved and start bringing some common sense solutions, we're going to be in trouble, folks. So I'm going to end right there. We're going to open up to some questions and you can fire away.
Thank you very much, Garrett. That was a very strong opening right there. Everybody, you probably can tell that how much passion that Garrett put in this race, and what type of mission-driven person he is. I think I like to start with 1 or 2 questions from myself, and then I can just open to the floor for everybody who has more questions to it. So Garrett, I can't agree with you more. I mean, every time when I go out of the state, for business trip to Texas, Arizona, I came back to states. I feel like my state is way behind everybody else right now. The road was poor. We don't have efficiency that's needed to compete with other states. We don't have big investment coming in. Like you say, there's just more and more people leaving the states. So to start with, I understand that you put a few things that you discussed, such as, we have to get the government out of the picture for those licensing controls and things like that, as well as to improve the infrastructure. If you can kind of elaborate to those points a little bit more as to how do you planning to attract greater investment into the state, I will be appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, the main thing is what we need to do is we got to allow people to understand that this is a great place to do business. Okay. And one thing that has happened is over time, we just slowly, just like you said, when you go to these other states, it's like you're going to another country. And it seems like they are just so far ahead in every aspect. It's just not one thing. It just seems like they're ahead of everything. And so we live in this instant gratification society, right? So people think that we're just going to get in there and flip the switch. And we have to understand this has been happening to us for decades. And my job in this thing is to get the control of the helm of this ship and get it back on course. And it's going to be, just like I told you guys in the beginning, before we got on the call, it's going to be a knockdown, drag out, fist fight in a phone booth, because we're going to come up against some opposition. There is a progressive left right now that's trying to basically turn our country into socialist country. And that's a stone throw away from communism. And that's what we have to stand up against it, because that's what they're pushing right now. And that's why they continue to give all these handouts and people to keep these people at home and be relying on the government. So one of the things we have to make sure that we do is we just have to start bringing some common sense things. And look, I'm not the candidate that's going to be on here and tell you we're going to balance the budget. We need to cut the budget. And this is a Republican problem over the last 3 years in the legislature. They have raised our budget by 31 to 33%. So there's a lot of overspending going on right now. And so I have to make this very clear, because somebody asked this question. There's a lot of great spending going on, like to our special needs children, and a lot of other things that our budget goes to. But I'm talking about the waste. Just to give everybody a small example, when we analyze the budget, there was a research study done on marijuana and if it had a positive impact on veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder. So we spent $250,000 of tax-paying dollars to run that study, which, hey, great. It's a great study. However, it's already been done by the federal government several years ago, and they all have come up with the same results. So why in the heck did we just redo a study that's already been proven and just waste that money? So that is a small example of many other examples of the overspending that's going on in our state government. Because here's what's going to happen, folks. Just like I said, if you look at the states that he just talked about, Texas, Arizona, we can talk about Florida and South Dakota, they're all talking about how their economies are just thriving right now. They are having record years. People are moving away from Michigan, California, Illinois, New York to get away from these Democrat-controlled states, and they want to move to these freedom states, which I don't blame them, okay? However, that's tax revenue. And so what these states have done, they've handled these lockdowns a whole heck of a lot better than California, Illinois, Michigan, and New York, right? So their economies really didn't get interrupted. So now they get this federal relief money, and they're just investing into more of the things that's going to allow their states to thrive over the next couple decades, like energy infrastructure, getting shovel-ready sites so they can attract big businesses like Ford to come down there and open factories. And what have we done? And I'm not going to live in the past, but we have to analyze this, because if Governor Whitmer would have did it right and not hammer down on our businesses and our economy and our children, we could be like all these other states right now, just thriving. And then we have all this extra surplus of money. Guess what we could do? We could invest into our energy infrastructure. We could actually fix the gosh darn roads. We could start supporting these small businesses. It just goes on and on. But what she's doing right now is she's behind. She's trying to basically make up for the 2 years of putting us into a hole from her decisions. And so she's handing out all this money, and she says she's for small businesses. And she said she's for in-person learning in schools. And so we're seeing that she's just playing petty politics. She's a smart woman. She's very intelligent, but that's what she knows. And that's what she's trying to do, is she's trying to buy all those votes up, because she knows that she did a heck of a lot of damage. And so to answer your question, we have to start not only cutting the regulations, but here's what I want to do. I'm a chiropractor. And so if I'm licensed in another state, I have to come back to Michigan, and I have to sit and wait and get licensed in the state of Michigan. And that takes time. And so what we're going to do, one of the things immediately when we get in there, is we're going to honor every other state's license. So that means people can come back to Michigan and they can put up a shingle and open up right away. And we're going to give those people up to 2 years to get licensed in the state of Michigan. That's going to start attracting. So we have to start having some entrepreneur spirit with this thing. And we have to start bringing some out of box thinking to get these businesses back. Because you're just not going to solve our energy crisis overnight. You're not going to solve our overregulated state overnight. We have to start bringing some creative ways to get these people back. And that's how we can start to generate tax income. Okay. Because the more businesses that come back here, that's more jobs. And the more jobs attracts families. And the more families, like I said, they come in, they buy real estate locally. Those taxes go local to the towns, and then they're spending money locally at our dry cleaners, our gas stations, and everything else, and at our restaurants. That's what we have to do. And with leadership, that's what we can bring to the table. Because if we don't have leadership, if we don't have that inspiration, that motivation, we're not going to get anywhere. And we're going to get the same old thing we've always had, is these career politicians, these silver spoon politicians, and these elitists trying to tell us and trying to rule over all of us and tell us how to live our lives. And that's why it's so important that we win this thing, because 3/4 of all these people that are running right now, they're just career politicians and silver spoon politicians and elitists trying to still have control. And it's time for we the people to stand up. It's time for ordinary people, folks, to do extraordinary things. And we have to get away from this mentality that these elected officials are going to save. It's about all of you. My job is to continue to inspire and motivate Michigan's greatest asset. That is the people, to continue to get things done. Because a lot of times when I go and speak, a lot of people point their finger at me and say, hey, Garrett, what are you going to do about election integrity? Hey, Garrett, what are you going to do about the schools? And I say, do you realize when you point the finger at me, there's 3 pointing right back at you? And I say, what are you doing right now at your local school boards? What are you doing at your city commissions and city councils? What are you doing right now for election integrity? See, we have to get away from government's going to save us. It's about the people. It's about all of us. It's about conversation. That's how we're going to do it, folks.
Wow. When you're pointing one finger, the 3 fingers pointing to yourself. I really love that. I think all of us needs to really chip in and do whatever we can to change the political atmosphere that's around us. I appreciate that very much. With that, I'd like to open the floor for anyone has questions or comments and would like to interact with Garrett. Or if you're a little bit shy to turn on your mic, feel free to type it in the chat window. Okay, I see one hand is raised. Rui Hua, feel free.
Hi, Rui Hua.
Yeah, hi. I think this is the second time I see you again. So
Yeah.
next week you come to our community talking to us. And I didn't know that you started the Unlock Michigan movement. I signed the first one. Now I'm running around with the second one right now. So I already got like 20 pages already. So I try to explain to people what's about. I think most people did not know that you, at least the people I talked to, did not know that you started it. I didn't know. So people ask me who started. I said, I do not know. But I
tell you, thank you so much for signing it and circulating. So let me ask you a question before you ask me a question. How good did that feel that you were fighting back?
It's really good. I got a lot of support. People always think this is the right thing to do. But, I think that's why you are the leader here, because people do not know, how to start, right? Where to start, right? So when I ask people to sign the petition, people say, hey, this is the right thing, I should sign it.
Absolutely. And I got to tell you all, like, folks, like so many people come up to me and say, hey, Garrett, you inspire me. You inspire me. It's the other way around. You inspire me. For you to go out there, get these signatures, spread that word, that's inspiring. And that's why it's so important to continue to ignite and activate all of you to get things done, because you guys are the true heroes. And we have to understand that moving forward, that it's not Garrett being governor, it's not these elected officials, it's all about the people from here on out. And we must continue to empower the people to get involved. So thank you so much for what you've done and what you continue to do.
I was just, I said I'm a small end, but I saw that that's the right thing to do. I saw how the community suffers through the pandemic and how the students suffer, with all the mandates. So I think, okay, probably I should just run with it. And I just surprised, how much support. I would say, over 90% of people I asked to sign it.
Yeah.
So that's just like, it's like to most people, it's just a common sense. But I just say we do not know where to start. I think that's why you have a great leader here, to start this movement.
Well, I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, my question will be, still going back to the education. I think this community is very concerned with what's going on with the school. I think, right now, especially, I think, because of pandemic, the schools was disclosed with more secret, right? Because the children are taking classes at home now, the parents discovered the CRT and also the form books.
Yes.
And I do not know whether you heard of it. The school board is very determined. Even when the students challenge those form books, they are very determined. And I'm wondering whether there's anything from the government side, suppose if you're the governor, okay, what you can do to help the parents. Like the meeting you went to the other day, the parents are talking about recall of several school board members, okay? Yes. But it's like a tremendous movement. And but I see that even though we call these school boards, like I noticed from the school calendar, the teachers will have these CRT trainings few times a year.
Yeah.
Okay. And we can recall the school boards, but there are more to be done. Yep. Before the more damage to our children, it's actually after we came back from that meeting, there was some parents, parents and teachers, in Rochester Hills School District, they are doing a book drive right now. They're doing the book drive. They just want to buy a list of the porn books and stuck into each classroom. So in that case, the parents will not be able to find out.
And that's wrong.
So yeah, that's wrong, right?
Yep.
So it's also the part of the teacher's job, right? So
Yep.
I'm wondering, okay, is anything from the government side that you can do funding wise or training wise, you can do, to train the teacher back,
Yep.
make them think properly.
So that there's a lot of things that we can do at both levels. And just like I said the other night,
Yeah.
we're not holding the line anymore, folks. We're taking back lost ground. This progressive left movement has infiltrated every level of office, our school boards, our city councils, the judicial system, state legislature, everywhere. And so we have to start taking back this lost ground. And so we have to have parent involvement, parent engagement from here on out. And we just can't quit after 1 or 2 school boards. We have to show up every single time. And if you can't be there, because I understand people get busy, then you have to get one of your friends or family members to go. And we have to continue to hit them at the local level. And if those school board members are not representing you, then we vote them out and we get the right representation in there. And then you have the power over the superintendents, because the school boards hire the superintendents. So if your superintendent is not doing what they need to do, just like your example there with the books and stuff, you bring it to their attention. And if they're not hammering it down and fixing things, then we got to get rid of that superintendent. Okay. So that's where locally what the people need to continue to do. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, as your next governor, day one, folks, CRT will be banned. This diversity, equity, inclusion garbage will be banned. Mask mandates will be illegal. Okay. And I will take care of the teacher unions, because that's what we have right now. It's usually not the teachers. We're not going to allow a few bad apples to spoil the bunch, right? As they say, we have a teacher administration problem, what you just said, and we have a teacher union problem. And so I will handle those two things and we will put the pressure on them. But just like I was saying, it's going to end up in the court systems, especially when I bring the hammer down on CRT, is the teacher union is going to get that in the court systems. And that's my job and the AG's job at the time to fight back against it. But we have to start putting pressure on it on both sides. And if we do it, we're going to get it done. And just like we were talking to at that meeting, in school of choice, folks, that's a big thing. If you start making schools more competitive, they're going to shape up real quick, because if these schools start losing money in head counts, they're going to start to analyze like, holy cow, we got to produce a living, right? And so that's how we're going to get back, is making school of choice a possibility. Now vouchers are against the state constitution, so you can't do a voucher in the state of Michigan unless there's a constitutional amendment. However, we're trying to figure out a way to like have a tax credit or something like that for these parents, that when they pull their kid, that follows that child to another school. Because I homeschool my kids right now, because my kids weren't going to wear a mask, and they're going to be going back to public schools here in the fall again. But we're trying to figure out a way to make sure that money's following that child. And if we do those things, it's going to take some time. But I think the most important, the most dramatic, the thing that we can get done right now is parent engagement at the local level. And that's one thing, as your next governor, I will be supporting the parents, and I will be looking out for the parents, and I'll have your back, unlike our governor right now, who doesn't. She's calling us domestic terrorists for standing up to these school boards, right? Even our own president, our so-called president, called us that. And that's garbage. You have every right, as not only a Michigander, but as an American citizen, to go in front of these school boards and voice your perception in a positive, nonviolent way. Okay. That's what we have to do. But if we'll definitely get it done. It's going to be a long fight, but we have to push back, because we're one election away from losing this. That's for sure.
I think there's another thing you probably can help is some parents found out why the school boards are so bold with those porn books, because there's a bill passed some years ago in Michigan. Basically, it's illegal. It's legal for teachers to show children porn books for the purpose of education.
Yeah, absolutely. Should be.
No. So they said it's legal.
Legal?
Yeah, it's legal for the
Oh.
teachers to show the children Chromebooks for
Do
the
you know what bill that was by chance?
I can find it out.
I'll look it up.
Yeah,
I'll find out because that's
It's-
garbage.
it's on my Facebook group site right now. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, that should not be done. I
yeah,
mean,
just so free. Yeah.
I'll look it up.
Mhm.
Okay,
I appreciate you, girl. Good to
That's
see you
all,
again.
that's all. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
thank you, Ray Huang. Okay,
Hey, Garrett, thanks for taking the time to share your thoughts, your plan and your background. Truly appreciate that. And I definitely support what you're planning to do. One question for you is, what's your communication strategy to the voters, particularly those fence sitters? Because you could have a great policy plan, but unless you have a great communication strategy in place, particularly to those the fence sitters, it doesn't really matter. So I would appreciate your thoughts.
Yeah, that is a great question. You're exactly right. And so that's why, Gary, there's some candidates out there that actually say like, oh, I don't care about fundraising. Fundraising doesn't matter. And I'm like, fundraising is everything, because exactly what you just said, you have to get your messaging out on the big screen. If you're not running commercials, if you're not getting on the media, you don't have a chance. I don't care how good you think you are or how great your policy is. Just like you said, sir, if you're not getting that message to the masses, then you're dead in the water and you don't have a chance. And that's one thing that we've been able to do with our grassroots army of hundreds of thousands of people involved in this thing, is our reach is really big. And that's why when you go to our events, all the other candidates right now, they'll attract 10 people, 15 people. We're attract hundreds of people at our events. And when we do a rally, there's thousands. And so that's unheard of, but that's just our movement and how engaged it's been over the past 2 years. And I've built layer upon layer of trust with these people by always following through and doing the right thing and being transparent and giving them up-to-date, accurate, and truthful information. And so we built this kind of community and this family. But we have that advantage right now of having a grassroots army that's getting that messaging out with polls, I'm having a thing, door knockers, and phone calls, and then getting our messaging out. But we're fundraising mode. And so we need to accumulate a war chest for the primary here over the next several months so we can start getting that narrative out. But what you're going to be seeing, especially with me, is when you follow me, I'm kind of like the Energizer Bunny on caffeine. I go all out every single day, and we're constantly doing events throughout this state, and I'm out working every other candidate out there. We're, like I said, we burn the ships. And so with that, with our social media game that we have with hundreds of thousands of followers from there, we're kind of hitting it all fronts. But I'm telling you what, if we don't get that $2 to $3 million war chest to get on TV, all will be for nothing because of exactly what you just said. We have to get out on media and corporate media, which, to be honest with you, kind of rips out my heart and kind of gets me rubbed the wrong way, because the very media that's against us, we're lining those corporate, corrupt people's pockets with money to utilize their airtime. And that's a sensitive issue with me right now, but it's true. I mean, we're spending millions of dollars to them and they're against us, so my goodness gracious, if there's something we can change about that in the future, I'll definitely be looking into that. But does that answer your question, sir?
No, absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome, Gary. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure appreciate it.
yeah, for those of you who didn't understand that why Garrett's saying we burned the ship, basically, as you all know, that he is a small business owner. Because of the race, he basically pretty much giving up on operating that clinic. Like he said, he's going 24/7 all in for this race for governor. So the loss on his private business side is tremendous, but that's why he's determined and passionate and really go all in for this race for governor. Thank you, Garrett.
You're welcome.
Anyone else like to ask a question or feel, throw in some comments in here?
Hi, Garrett. My name is Cindy.
Hi, Cindy.
Hi. I'm really, like you said, inspired by your spirit. It's a fighting mood. You see something is not right, we want to change it. We want to try our best to change it.
Yes.
Yeah. So for me, it's like I have been in Michigan for 20 years. I saw up and down, but I never been so disappointed in last 20 years. I don't know how to express my feeling. I said maybe it's my issue because, you know, people allowed to happen. For the education, my choice is, okay, I send my daughter to private school. I cannot even talk about the public school, the agenda, the teachers, the schedule, whatever. So I feel the public education system needs to be rebuilt. It's not only can change on top of it. I thought it should be rebuilt from fundamental. So who is accountable for the case? Who is accountable for the case education? It should be partnership, the government, the school board, and the parents. We cannot get rid of parents. We are still paying for that, no matter it's through tax or we pay for my daughter's living. The parent is accountable for the case education. I cannot let it go. Yeah, but I'm losing the fight. And even for right now, I feel it's like, okay, the parents can select school. That's how to happen in all the states, including Michigan, because I don't have any hope in the current system. No matter teachers union or whatever they want to teach. So that's definitely an issue. You know, Lee mentioned, okay, community first, that's okay. But again, American
Cindy,
as a whole, it's not a community only. We still need to have the international competition. We still need educated workers any places. So we need to fight for that. But I do have a question for you is like, you know, when I talk to my daughter, she said the teacher know what we should learn. It's not you, the teacher, the school knows what I should learn. I mean, my daughter, she told me that. So I feel it's like, okay, we may need to do more work to approach the young generation. So my question to you is like, do you have any special method so we can approach to the young generation to let them hear the both sides?
That's a great question. And I would agree with you. And I want to make that very perfectly clear that we can't put it all on the parents, right? It's exactly what you just said we have to do is we have to work together as a team, right? All of us have to. And what we have right now, especially with these younger generations, and I'm going to sound like the old guy right now, but it wasn't like this when I was growing up. I lived in Michigan pretty much my entire life. And, you know, when we were growing up, we didn't have all this garbage that we're dealing with right now. I mean, when I'm from a very small country town, and in that kind of culture, you know, our dream jobs were to be a welder, to take over my parents' business, to go work at Ford. You know, there was only a very small amount of us in that school system that went on to do college. I mean, that's just what it was. But now we have a really bad culture problem. I don't want to call it bad, but it's kind of frustrating. We live in this instant gratification society, and a lot of these kids feel like those types of jobs aren't worth it. Like it's not good enough for them. And that's a culture problem because they're always on social media, they're on Instagram, they're on TikTok, and they're constantly programmed in this instant gratification society. Unfortunately, as we are all well aware of, because most of us on here are probably business owners, is it takes work to get things done. It's a grind. You know, everybody wants the 40-year-old apple tree overnight, but it's not how it works. It takes 20 to 30 years of constant work and grinding and failing and fall down 7 and get up 8 and that never quit attitude to carve out just that little piece of the American dream. And that is a culture problem with this younger generation. And so that's what I'm hoping to bring to the table too, is just some reality checks and some common sense solution and some inspiration to start showing these kids like, hey, look at what this guy's able to do. He's grinding, he's working, kind of like what Governor DeSantis is doing in the state of Florida right now. If you've been watching him, he's actually changing the culture down there. He really is, because he's constantly being transparent. He's engaged with the parents at the school level. He's fighting against these teachers union. And so those are some of the things that we can do in the state of Michigan with the right leadership. But folks, if we don't get a fighter in the office, we're not going to get any of this stuff done. Because you got to remember, it's just not that we win and it's done. We got to have a governor. Our next governor has to withstand the arrows that are going to be shot. They got to stand up for what's right, even if it may be unpopular to do so. And I just have a proven track record with that. And that's just the kind of person I am. When I believe in something, I won't quit. I'll put it all on the line because I believe that our cause is just. And that's what the approach that I'm taking with these school systems. Like, I will take back lost ground, and I will be battling these teachers unions, and we're going to inspire the parents to continue to get involved, and we're going to inspire these teachers to join our side. And you know what? Things are going to get better when we do that. And as soon as we weather that storm and we make things a little better, that's how our ripple effect will grow, right? And that's what we need to do, because we're going to get 8 years in the state of Michigan. And I'm telling you right now, we're not going to be able to fix everything in the state of Michigan, but people are going to start to see that there's a sunrise on the horizon. And we all know that it's always darkest right before sunrise. And I'm the type of guy that would rather light the candle than gripe about the darkness. Okay. And so that's what I'm going to continue to do, is bring my positivity and my motivation and my inspiration and my hard work ethic, and just do as I say, and not that do as I say, not as I do elitist mentality that we've been getting over the past decades here. We're going to get real now. And that's why you guys are seeing that I'm one of you. It's about the people now, but that's how we do it, Cindy.
Yeah, thank you for the answer. Yeah.
You're welcome.
So absolutely right. It's a culture issue.
It is a culture issue. Yes, ma'am.
She thought if she called DoorDash, the food always come to the door. It was like, you still need people in restaurant. You don't need waiters, but you need someone to deliver the food to your door.
Yep.
Everyone sitting in the chair, on sofa, and call DoorDash, the food will never come to your door in long run. So she said, we can call DoorDash. You don't want to cook, they call DoorDash. Yeah, they don't get the reality. So yeah,
it's a culture issue. And that's why we have to continue to inspire the youth, because hey, guess what? They're the future leaders, right? And that's scary, because folks, all of us on this call, we want all of our aspirations to take root. We want all of our legacies to grow, but most importantly, we want all of our family trees to flourish for generations to come. And that's what's at stake right now. And that's why after this is all said and done, I'm going to be able to look at my creator, myself in the mirror, my wife and kids in the eyes, and all of you in the eyes, and said, Garrett did it to the best of his ability. He left it all out in the field. He was truthful. He was transparent. He led from the front. That's what I'm bringing to the table, because I'm not going to have any regrets with this thing. It's too important.
Great. Quick time check. I think we probably have time to squeeze in one more question. Anyone like to take that, or?
Last one, best one. Here we go. Who's it going to be?
Go big or go home.
That's right.
All right. If no
Okay,
one,
Garrett,
I'll just throw in my.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Gary.
I'll jump in. So Garrett, Michigan really want to win in November. We want to take the state back, right? So, but I also understand Michigan is it's not a deep blue state. It's not deep red state either. It's a moderate state. And I heard earlier you mentioned that, really for the country, we have so much division, so much polarization. And I really appreciate your comment about we need to get the people from both sides to work together. So what is your strategy if you win the primary to win over the moderates,
absolutely,
even the moderate Democrats?
Great question. So that's one thing about our movement, is most of our movement is moderates. And this is why they've been with me. And I call them the old school Democrats or the liberals, the old JFKs of the world, which would be considered moderate Republicans in today's standards. But, you know, and these people have been watching me and seeing like, okay, is this guy a politician or is he real? Is he going to follow through with what he says he's going to do? And that's one thing I've been able to do is build trust by following through and just doing what's right. The golden rule, always do what's right. If you do what's right, everything will work out. So I'll give you an example. Way back when we first announced, I'm pro-life. Okay. My mom was adopted, and if her mom could have had an abortion, I wouldn't be here. And I know a lot of people on the progressive left probably wishes that would have happened, but it didn't. But I believe in pro-life, and we had a movement member, as we call them, get a hold of me and said, hey, you said we could have conversation. If I come to one of your events, would you talk to me? And I was like, absolutely. I don't care. She drove 2.5 hours to come to our next event. And she came in there and she was ready to go. And she came up and she introduced herself. She's like, I'm pro-choice. And I was like, well, I'm pro-life. Nice to meet you. And we had a 35-minute conversation. And I'm going to ask you all, do you think I changed her belief? Nope. Do you think she changed mine? Nope. We listened to each other. She gave me a big hug. And she's like, I never voted for a Republican before, but I'm voting for you. And I've never donated to a campaign before, but I'm donating to yours. And that's what people want now. They just want conversation. They want real. And that's one thing that I have been very, very firm on. And with our movement is we were always going to be a nonviolent, positive movement to inspire great change in not only this state, but cause a ripple effect throughout our country. People are done with this division. And so as you all are well aware of, all I have to do is get in front of the room and I'll win the room. Why? Because I come from the heart. And the problem with telling the truth is you don't have to remember it. You can just come from the heart, be yourself. And I think that's what people are ready for. And they're done with this division. And that's why the more we get out in front of people, the more we get our messaging out. And look, Governor Whitmer and the progressive left, they're going to label me as a radical right extremist, that I'm a COVID denier, I'm an anti-vaxxer and all this other garbage. And that's fine. They can sling that mud. But I'm always going to stay true to who I am. So how are we going to win this thing, especially with the moderates? That's on the debate stage with Governor Whitmer. That's what's going to make or break this race. And that's why I'm the candidate, the only candidate right now that can beat her, because I've been in the fight for 2 years. Nobody else has. They've all joined the fight over the last 7 months after the fight has already happened. And you're not going to beat Governor Whitmer by getting on the stage and telling the audience in the state on who can fix the gosh darn roads better. It's not going to be policy. It's going to be accountability time. It's to hold her accountable for everything that she's done and everything that she continues to do. Unfortunately, she's the gift that keeps on giving. She continues to make mistakes, and I'm going to call her out, not in a negative way. I'll never, ever attack somebody's character because that's not who I am. I'll attack policy. I will attack inaction. I will attack the wrong action, and I definitely will attack the wrong decision-making. And that's what I'll do on the debate stage with her, is I will hold her accountable by not attacking her, but just calling out the things that she has done and continue to spread our message of unity, because Governor Whitmer has been the very definition of division for the last 2 years, with working unilaterally over all of us, working unilaterally, not or ruling over all of us, not working with the legislature. She refused to. She's not a leader. She continued to make unilateral decisions. She's the one, if you remember back in June 2020, went on a video and said, hey, make sure that we implore one another to wear the mask. If not, do it forcefully. So she incited violence, and a lot of people were getting attacked in the stores and having confrontations. Leaders don't do that. Leaders do not incite violence. Leaders do not divide. And that's one thing that I will continue to preach is unity. And the more we get out, and just like my other, I think it was Gary too. Was that the same Gary? Nope, the other
Gary.
The other Gary talked about like how are you gonna get your messaging out? Because it's huge. If we don't get on TV to get that narrative out, we're gonna be dead in the water. And that's why we must continue to fundraise and inspire people to get financial skin in this game, because with that money puts us on TV, and that's where people will start to realize what we're about.
Thank you, Garrett.
You're welcome. My honor.
Thank you so much. Looks like we're about 6 minutes over, but thank you so much, Garrett. It was a great was a great conversation between yourself and the fellow Chinese American voters. I think we touched on majority of those points we like to touch. Just wondering if you have any last statements or any last calls that you would like to make to the Chinese voter community.
Absolutely. It was my honor to be with all of you tonight. And I just want to reiterate that this is about all of us. And I know it's been dark, and I know we've been through a lot over the last 2 years. But one thing, just like I said before, it's always darkest right before sunrise. There's hope on the horizon. Okay. And I want to make sure that you all understand that don't you ever think that you can't make a difference, because you can. You just merely have to muster the courage to stand up, because you never know what small act that you may say or do, a compliment, a video on Facebook, that may change the lives of millions tomorrow. And it's our job. We were all put in this moment for this exact time. It's our job to move this thing forward united, because this country, if it's divided, it will fall. And we must take back this lost ground to spread this message of unity. So we'll take back our state, but not only that, we'll take back our country in 2024. That's what's at stake, folks. And you must be engaged. You can no longer sit on the sidelines. You can no longer sit in the bleachers. You have to come and join us in this fight. And I guarantee you this, one day you're going to be on your deathbed, hopefully surrounded with your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and you're going to be able to look them all in the eyes and realize that's why you stood up and fight, to give them a glimpse of what this country should be, a republic.
Garrett Soldano, thank you so much. For those of you who like to know more about Garrett's backgrounds and would like to communicate with them, I think you can always go to his website, garrettformichigan.com. And again, this race for governor dictates by the fundings as well. So for those of you who like to vote for Garrett, please feel free to go to his website. I think there will be a donation link right on the webpage. Go there. We have to do our share to get our candidates in this position. Our future counts on it.
That's right.
With that,
you can also follow us on Facebook at Garrett from Michigan too. We put a lot of content up there, videos, motivation. We're always updating our movement, where we're at, what we're doing. So sometimes we all just need our cup of freedom refilled every now and again. And that's what we try to do, is continue to spread our message of unity, inspiration, and hope. So check us out on that Facebook, Garrett from Michigan, and then follow us.
In addition to that, real quick, guys, I posted a couple links in the chat. If you guys have any additional questions that you would like answered, please email John, Jon, at garrettfrommichigan.com. Again, that's in the chat. If you'd like to get involved with our campaign, donate to our campaign, or something as simple as just sign a petition for our nominating petition that we'll be resubmitting here again soon to help us out with our buffer, please reach out to myself via email or on our website. And again, that donation link is in the chat as requested. But also thank you guys again a ton for having us on. It was our pleasure.
thank you, John.
Bye, guys.
Thank you very much,
Good night, Garrett.
Garrett.
Good night.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Thank you. Bye.